It's time we give back. So we'll see and show someone where love's at. Even if you don't give a dime, give your heart and share your time. Help somebody else in life. Give back. Let's give back. It's time we give back. So we'll see.
Welcome to another episode of Ignite, Empower, Transform. I'm your host, Rachel Cheeks-Givan with the National Give Back for Kids campaign. This evening, I'm honored to interview two students from Manhattanville College. We're going to focus on what it is that they do to give back, why they were inspired to give back, and to learn more about, as a student, what does that mean to them. Our first guest is Jerome Johnson, student at Manhattanville College. Jerome, welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for coming and accepting the invitation. Before we get started, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm a student at Manhattanville College. I'm also an employee there. And I took a class with Professor Cheeks-Givan in January. It was a class that was centered around activism of certain sorts, giving back to your community, breaking down some barriers that people have in their different communities and cultures, and how important it is to, for everyone to not only communicate, but to also give back to those who might be underprivileged or might have, a little bit more of risk coming up through life, to give them a real opportunity to be able to, recognize the fruits of what their labor can produce down the line if they stay on the right track.
Sounds like a great class.
Oh, it was an amazing class. We had students of all different, heritages and backgrounds, and it was during a very tense time. It was right after the election of our current president. And, you had people that fell on, either side of the fence, but everyone was able to communicate and was able to respect each other's opinions and respect each other's differences, and hence learn from each other, to the point where I would say just about everyone who took that class together could consider themselves friends at this point. We've all, tried our best to realize that there's bigger things in life that, might need our attention and our help, such as giving back to underprivileged or people who might have certain disabilities, or just, somebody who might be down on their luck.
Right.
Anytime you have the opportunity to give back, you should. It's more so of a mentality than an action. It's a mentality that leads to an action that many people don't come across any kind of, we don't come across any kind of confrontation on a daily basis. Usually, now is a different time. Before this year, you typically wouldn't come across a confrontation in which you would feel the need to really break down and understand where someone else is coming from, which will give you empathy into what their problems are and why they might be reaching for some sort of help, or why, why some people who are from a different generation might not have the same outlook as people coming up today who are very open-minded, especially here. We're in New York. We're in one of the melting pots of the entire world.
That's right.
Where, I personally, I was born in New York, but I lived my youth in Jamaica, which really helped to mold some of my values as far as why I think it's important to give back, because a lot of people in my home country, or my adopted home country of Jamaica, I should say, because I am born in New York and, I love being here. But people back in Jamaica, I realized there was a big sense of community as far as raising your kids, or as far as, making sure that everyone got in trouble. If someone got in trouble, that, everyone was accountable as far as helping that person get back to the right track. And as far as I've heard in, New York, that's how it used to be, many years ago. And so at some point in time, we strayed away from that. And I think, organizations such as the Give Back for Kids, or such as, Boy Scouts, or different sports teams that, youth sports teams, they're slowly starting to get back on that track of everyone, look out for your neighbor's children, or those who are at risk, and help them to have a great opportunity
Right.
to live a full life and be a productive member of our society.
Jerome, you brought me way back because I just remember when I was growing up. Maybe I'm dating myself. I just remember my mother would always say, "I've got all the neighbors watching out for you while I'm at work." So, what do you think now in terms of the changing climate? What can we do differently, and what is it that you feel that we can do to demonstrate that we have this sense of community then?
Well, over time, our society, a lot of people. Now, I won't say everyone. You can't
Right.
paint everyone with a broad brush, but a lot of people, it's become such a cutthroat society that we live in that people are just concerned about their well-being and their family. And you should be. You should, have love and want the best for the people who mean the most to you. But at the same time, you cannot thumb your nose up or look down upon people who might not have the same type of opportunities that you have, or that might have been born with a disability that keeps them from getting a proper chance to, affect our community in your typical, what we were raised as, maybe being a police officer or being a teacher or, being a businessman, somebody that gives back. Not everyone has that opportunity, but with help from those who are in a better position, people can slowly bridge that gap, and we can all, live a more sustainable lifestyle as far as communities being more in tune with each other. There being less violence, less disagreements as far as cultural perspectives, religion, things of that nature. It all comes down to really opening your heart and an empathy. And I feel as though the class that we took in Manhattanville, I was able to, grab a little bit from everybody in order to help form a new perspective in my mind. And I'm 29 years old. So at that point in time, a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm set in my ways," or they were raised a certain way. But you have to be open-minded. I realized that, and this class made me really open-minded. It's a great class that Manhattanville College offers, and it gives us the opportunity to see the world in a different light. And at this time, especially this time of our history, I guess you could say, it's very important for everybody to have an open mind, because whatever side of the fence you fall on, we all love this country. This country has given us all a tremendous opportunity, and those who are forgotten in this country should not be forgotten. They should be helped. And for instance, one of our class assignments was we went to one of the elementary schools on Tinton Avenue in the Bronx, where Professor Givan has his Boy Scout troop and his basketball team for youth that live in that area. And you could just tell by being there how important it was for them to, have somewhere to go. And it's great to have those, because as I was growing up in Jamaica, or even when I came back here, it was very important for me to have those male role models in my life that, might not have been there otherwise, but they took their own personal time. It was their own personal, what they valued that made them reach out to to try to help me fulfill what I could be. I had a counselor in high school named Mr. Phillip, who my senior year, I wasn't getting into trouble, but I was not focused, and he took extra time to make sure that I read some books. I paid more attention in class, things of that nature that helped me to become what I consider the hardworking man that I am today. And I see similar qualities in all of the men that were volunteering in the give back or in that at the Tinton Avenue school, or in the give back, or any kind of volunteering. It doesn't have to, even if it's not something organized, it's just a mentality that you should be, if you're fortunate enough to be able to help people, and that's not talking fiscally, that's talking just with your heart, then I think it's very important that in any way that you can, you do that.
Yeah, I think you should be a spokesperson for the organization. You're absolutely right. And you also made me think of when I was growing up, I had coaches
Yes.
that were there all the time, and you don't realize their dedication
Exactly.
and the difference that they were making for you. They didn't even have their own children on the swim team, and this was when I was at Kips Bay Boys Club.
Okay.
And so you brought me back to those times and how important that was, and I still remember it today. So just think about the impact you made, Jerome, when you went to that school.
Definitely.
With those, young kids.
Yes.
They're probably going to remember this 10 years from now and say, I remember when someone from Manhattanville came and spoke to me.
Definitely.
Which brings me back to, tell me more about Manhattanville. What are they doing in terms of giving back?
So Manhattanville College, they do have many events that they host, such as they have cancer walks, they have walks for, I believe they have a walk for diabetes as well. They have different after-school programs that use their athletic fields, to help, kids have something to do after school. Then they also have, another thing that Manhattanville offers is during the day they'll have like kids who are not even ready to go to college, maybe 7th, 8th graders, and they'll bring them to the colleges to to have a tour so that they can start to plant the seed in their mind that this higher education is important, and to let them know what you can expect out of life once you do enter higher education, because once you get there, you're no longer under your parents' roof, and it's really up to you being responsible to be able to help push yourself forward. And a place like Manhattanville has plenty of resources to be able to do that. They are very hands-on with their students. Hopefully, some of the boys maybe that I met and some of the girls as well. Let me not forget the girls. They had the Girl Scout troop, and I jumped double dutch with them.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, it was my first time ever. I never knew how hard it was, to be honest. I was horrible. But maybe down the line, one of them will be a Manhattanville graduate. That's the kind of thing that I think our professor was trying to get out of us going there, was to just show that no matter what road your life takes, because our program is also for adults who are going back to school mainly. So no matter what road your life takes, you can always take the time, and things might have to bounce your way here and there, but when they do, take advantage of them, and further your education or further your ability to, be a good family member, things of that nature. It was a very helpful class as far as being able to mold those values and morals.
All right. Well, thank you, Jerome. It was a great perspective from you, and listening to you, I could see that how important it is about giving back, and that you're also dedicated to do that as well.
Definitely.
And I'm sure that there's going to be, our listeners out there are really going to learn a lot from Jerome in terms of giving back and how important that is. So now we're going to head to a break and come back and hear from another Manhattanville student.
What if you could invest in the future of kids, like a stock? Not the kind of stock that's about making money, but a stock for social change. A whole new kind of investment called Better Futures. When you invest, it helps kids go to college. Believe in us, invest in us, watch us grow. My name is Sydney, and I'm your dividend.
Thank you. You got a king?
Go fish! In your face, in your face,
It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Welcome back. I'm really excited to have the honor and privilege to interview our second guest, Rebecca Daniele from Manhattanville College. Rebecca, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started with the interview.
Okay, I'm a current student at Manhattanville College. I'm part of the appeal program, so we're all working adults who are going to school at night. And I had the pleasure of familiarizing myself with the Give Back campaign through a class that I took there. It was Development and Change in Social Organizations with Professor Givan. It was a tremendous opportunity to familiarize myself with a great organization.
So from that experience, Rebecca, what was one thing you learned that you didn't know before about giving back and volunteering?
I'd say my biggest takeaway was, and it's hard sometimes as a college student when you have these goals you want to achieve and you're thinking about your future, you tend to place yourself in the center of your world. And this class taught me how to step outside of that. How, you're not the sun and everything is not revolving around you, and that the person sitting next to you is important and the person sitting behind you and in front of you is important, and that you need to care about other people and you need to involve that in your everyday life as much as you possibly can. So my interpretation of giving back was about how I could change my day-to-day. So I wasn't going to volunteer every Saturday or every day after school. I decided that the best thing that I could do and that I could do every day was changing how I was living my life. To smile even when I was slummed down with a lot of work, overtired, and not happy about being here.
So Rebecca, you shared a lot about the impact the class has had on you. So what are you doing personally to give back?
So I spent the majority of my childhood every Sunday going to church. My mom was a Sunday school teacher. Several of my aunts are Sunday school teachers. And I had the opportunity just a couple weeks ago. My aunt is running a little short on Sunday school teachers, and the kindergarten class needs a new teacher every Sunday. And the light bulb went off, and I could hear Professor Givan's voice in my head, and that's something I wanted to be a part of. And would I necessarily categorize that as giving back? I don't think I would have before taking this class. Right. I think that's the biggest takeaway I had from that experience.
So tell us, how have you taken what you've learned from the class and actually personally give back? I want to hear that story from you.
So the most important takeaway that I got from that class was to remove myself from the center. And I decided that I could volunteer a couple of hours a week, I could do something on the weekends, or I could make a real change to myself and how I was living my life every day. I spend the extra 10 minutes to hold doors, to wait for people, to ask them how they're doing, to call them and see how they're feeling if they've been sick. It's about taking time and energy to show people that you care about them, to spread love and to respect everyone when you're tired, when you're angry, when you're sitting in traffic, to stop and have patience and to care about the way that the energy that you're giving out to others. I think that's the biggest thing, because your energy, it's a domino effect. Right. And it could be positive or it can be negative. So that's my everyday.
And that's infectious, right? When you start doing that and spreading that kind of love to other people, the hope is that it goes on, to others. And as you were saying that, it just made me curious when I mentioned infectious. Have you seen a change with your family and friends? Or have they seen a change in you?
I think that they would say I have more energy than I've ever had. And they would say that because I don't have patience. I can get a little curt because I want things done quickly and I like them to be done the right way. And I've just taken a more laxed approach, a more quiet, understanding approach. Maybe that comes with getting a little bit older, or maybe that comes with learning you don't have control over everything. But I think that they would see that change.
That's good, because you probably learned or felt that level of empathy. And I want to go back to the visit to the school when you went with Mr. Givan or Professor Givan to the school. Was there a particular experience that stood out for you, or a child that stood out with you? And what did you do while you were there? I'm just curious. What did you all do when you were there at the school?
So we were at PS 463 on a Saturday afternoon, and we started off our day by talking to the kids about our experience and what brought us back to school. Some of us were all different ages, so I think they were a little curious because we didn't look like your traditional college students. And I was so impressed at how intrigued they were about us and about our stories and how involved they were in talking to us and asking us questions. So it just showed me how important it is for them to, for us, for anybody to spend their time with youth. They're so susceptible to everything around them. That one experience of us talking about college to them sparked so many questions.
Absolutely.
Who's to say that 6 college kids were going to be standing in front of them that Saturday, or they'd have the opportunity to even think these things? So it's all about exposure and being in a safe and happy place to ask those questions. And I think that day, that Saturday, what was that? What is it called there? It's not the Boys Club.
The Alpha Eagles program and the Girl Scouts program. Yeah.
So the Alpha Eagles program creates such a safe and supportive place for these young kids, and you can tell they're so comfortable from the way that they're willing to participate and ask questions. It was surprising for me, and I had such a great time. We ended our day all playing basketball together. We played games. And it was interesting how they were feeding off of our energy. So when we were calm and cool and collected, so were they.
Right.
And when things got a little rambunctious, when we kept that cool, they did the same. It just goes to show the influence of role models and how that can translate into their behavior and how important it is for them to be surrounded by positive influences.
Well, you're getting me excited, like wanting to go back and see the kids on Saturday. So in terms of, if you had to give advice to someone who's thinking about giving back and they're not sure how, they're a college student, they're bogged down with schoolwork, they're thinking, I don't have time for all of that, what would you say to that student?
I would say that I was that person, and that giving back does not mean a grand gesture. It's not moving mountains. It's not starting an organization. It's giving what you have. That's your time. That's your energy. It's your love. Giving back means caring about the person next to you for a moment more than yourself. And if you can just think about how you can do that in your busy life, in your underwhelmed life at the moment, wherever it is you may be, think about how you can give back doing what you're doing right now, because that's the most sustainable approach. You'll constantly be able to do this and to continue doing this if you find something that's practical.
Right.
So it doesn't need to be a grand gesture. It doesn't need to move mountains. Give what you can.
That is a great statement for all of us to keep in mind. And it is about give what you can. And we talk about that with the National Give Back for Kids campaign. Sometimes it's not about money. Everyone thinks it's the money, but you're highlighting your time is just as important. Absolutely. Right? The kids, seeing you and having that experience with you and the other Manhattanville college students can really make a difference, even if it's not financial, but it's that long-lasting impact. It's been my honor and privilege this evening to have the opportunity to interview 2 students from Manhattanville College about their opportunities with giving back and their own personal stories. So thank you, Jerome Johnson and Rebecca Daniele, for the opportunity to be able to hear your stories and share your stories on the National Give Back for Kids campaign. Good night.
I see all your smiles and all the tears strolling down on your faces, but I know all the while it's gonna be okay. Yes, it is. Just open up your eyes. Open up your eyes. The sun is soon to shine. Aim your arrow high and keep reaching for the sky. It's time we give back. Sow a seed and show someone where love's at. Even if you don't give a dime, give your heart and share your time. Help somebody else in life. Give back. Let's give back. Don't is soon to shine. Yeah. Aim your arrow high and keep reaching for the sky. It's time we give back. Someone see and show someone what love's at. Even if you don't give a dime, give your heart and share your time. Help somebody else and learn. Give back. Let's give back. Don't take the power of love for granted. It's the source that will change the planet. Until we all try to understand it, then we could give back. Back to a time of sacrifice. Like those before who paid the price. It's time we give back. Someone see and show someone where love's at. Yeah. Even if you don't give it back, give your heart and share your time. Help somebody else and learn. Give back. Let's give back. It's time we give back. Give back. Someone see and show someone where love's at. Even if you don't give it back, give your heart and share your time. Help somebody else and learn. Give back. Let's give back. Just believe, dream your dream, spread your wings, be set free. Head up high, try your right. Now's the time, shine your light. Just believe, dream your dream, spread your wings, be set free. Head up high, try your right. Now's the time, shine your light.
Hi, I'm your host, Larry V. Stark Jr.
I'm your host, Rachel Cheeks-Givan.
I'm your host, Hosea James Givan II.
I'm your host, Rebecca Givan.
Tune in to
Ignite
Empowered
Transform
every Tuesday night.
at 8
8 p.m.
on BronxNet.
Give back. Let's give back.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Your son wants to get a cat, but you're allergic.
Maybe he could be an outdoor cat that lives in our neighbor's yard, 3 doors down.
Mom.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Teens in foster care will love you just the same.